Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. We're here with Dynamite, David, and we're here. Actual football games are being played tonight. Real games, not week 0 games, but real football games. And we got some picks for you. Our opening week, and we're both full bore on our picks this week. It's going to be a fun time. I always like week 1. We have a list of loads of picks. And then by week 15, we're going to have like 3 teams we trust as we whittle our way down past teams we trust.
Heavy sense of optimism.
Yes. Everything is good. We believe in everyone, and then it whittles its way down where we don't believe in anyone by the end of the year, except for probably Alabama and Clemson, and maybe Ohio State destroying all the Big Ten teams. But anyway, we'll get into week 0, a handful of games in week 0, none totally that notable. I think a couple games that you sort of peek your eye on a couple teams to see how they're going to start out. The big one was Nebraska, Illinois, I'd say, though. I think that's getting less and less big as the more that game went on. Really a awful football game, but we touched on it a little bit in our Big Ten preview. Nebraska just didn't look good. They didn't look like they have the talent. And Illinois, while I don't think they looked good, looked organized and a capable football team of beating teams who don't respect them and turn the ball over pretty much.
Well, I think Illinois definitely showed their playing style. They're gonna play safe, smart, conservative, and try to wait for the opponent to make a mistake. And Nebraska sure did make those mistakes. Yes,
per always Nebraska. Bad pass plays. I don't even want to get into the special teams disaster. That's really probably what flipped the whole game is that guy fielding the punt on the half-yard line and then running back into the end zone. I don't know. See, that's one of those things where how do you even blame Scott Frost? I mean, what does a guy need to be told not to field a punt on the half-yard line? Because I recall my father yelling at me from about age 3 from fielding anything from about the 15-yard on line and in. So it's just Nebraska's a mess. And
I think that's Big Ten football, like the first quarter score.
Yes. I think really I think this more says Nebraska, and they're going to struggle pretty much all year long now. Yeah. I will be very shocked if they get over that 3 or 4 win mark, but maybe some good things coming to Illinois. Maybe Burt can sort of change that program into, I don't want to say powerhouse, but a consistent program in that side of the division where there's not a whole lot of depth there. Illinois really is a powerhouse waiting to be made. It's a huge school with a great recruiting base. They can come recruit out of Indiana, Ohio. They even can touch into the South a little bit in Kentucky, Tennessee. And, they have that whole Northeast Illinois, Chicago area. I know it's not littered with talent, but there are a lot of human beings up there. I believe Illinois is the 4th largest state in the United States. So we'll see how Illinois proceeds with things this year, but I'm a little bit nervous about Nebraska the rest of the year. We'll see how that breaks
not looking good
down. But I think the more interesting game probably was UCLA Hawaii, not in visual watch, but probably what we saw from UCLA. Funny enough, I heard a fun little stat that this was Chip Kelly's first non-conference win at UCLA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now
this is year 3, isn't
it?
Yes.
Now.
Well, did they play conference?
They did not play conference last year, so it's technically, and the other one, they had the likes of like Cincinnati and really actual very good teams that they would not be favored pretty much in any of those games. But just a fun quirky stat that this one was their first non-conference win. So interesting there, but really, I was quite impressed with UCLA. This is the first time I watched them play, and they look like a Chip Kelly team. Explosive runs all over the plate. The offensive line just creating holes, them getting those little shifty guys gashes, and them getting big first down runs, and basically the quarterback didn't even matter, who once again, I would say it did not play great. But if you get that kind of running game, it doesn't really matter. The quarterback doesn't have to play all that great.
Well, I think, what'll really factor into how well you value this UCLA performance is how well do you value the Hawaii team?
Yes.
You can't blame UCLA. They came out, they took care of business, they dominated from the beginning. But I'm still kind of in a holding pattern, really looking forward to this game.
Yeah, we'll get into this game.
And I think that'll be the really telling story if Chip Kelly's really turned this team around or not.
Yeah. I will say, coming into the season, we thought Hawaii would be all right on defense. I don't think we thought they were going to be great, but I think that boons well. Defensively, I don't know what we're getting from this UCLA team quite yet. I think that's more we're sort of wait and see what this LSU game has in store for him to see if that defense can remain confident. But I will say I was really, really pleasantly surprised with how that rushing attack ran.
Oh, yeah.
And if Kelly has the rushing attack, his offense becomes a real pain to stop. And then the reliance on Dorian Thompson-Robinson is not probably as much. So interesting to see how UCLA goes this week. Two games that were blowouts and were supposed to be blowouts. We'll just touch on Fresno State, who you really like in the Mountain West.
Yeah.
Pretty much put it on Uconn all season, all game long. Their shoes were quote unquote melting. I know they're in Connecticut, but it's not like hot weather has never bestowed them. They do have a summer there, but I guess, whatever. But they looked awful per usual Uconn. But I thought the Fresno State offense looked really good, and pretty much a return right where they left off. And I don't know how much you gauge from it, but the defense did pitch a shutout, which I think last year, I think even versus a Uconn team, they probably would have struggled a little bit.
A shutout and scored some points.
Yes, and they might have scored some points with this Uconn team. That fumble did not look defensive cost. It bad Uconn offensive cost. But anyway, I do think the impressive thing is getting the shutout, because I don't know, even versus bad Uconn team, if they would have been able to shut them out. So maybe something to gauge that Fresno State defense has stepped up a level.
I remember you giving me a hard time when I took Fresno minus the 28 or 27.5, and they easily covered that.
They did easily cover that spread because I thought they'd give up points. They did not give up points, and the best way to cover spreads is to not give up points. So Fresno State held the business, and then San Jose State also held up business for Southern Utah.
They actually gave up more points than I was expecting.
Yes, but 7 of that was on a pick 6. So technically they only gave up 7 points, and their offense gave them the other 7.
That doesn't help your under bet.
That did not help my under bet whatsoever. The thing that helps spread coverers is shutouts. The thing that kills under bets is big sixes. And I was watching the game, and Southern Utah drove down there, got a score, and then the next thing there was a pick 6, and I was like, oh crap. And then I had to be rooting against San Jose State scoring points all second half, which they pretty much could do whenever they wanted. They did not score all that much, but they did hit the number that I did not want them to hit right off the bat in that third quarter. But anyway, I thought San Jose State looked pretty good. Defense looked pretty solid. Really, Southern Utah is not a great subdivision team, but they are actually probably, if you matched up Southern Utah and Uconn, it'd probably be a pretty close game, and I'd probably favor Southern Utah a little bit there. So anyway, San Jose State continued to look like a team to contend with in the Mountain West. Fresno State maybe putting themselves in that place to be. So and they lead into pretty big matchups this weekend, both Fresno State and San Jose State. But first, I think we'll get into the Penn State-Wisconsin game. Penn State going to Wisconsin here. What is your feel on this game? I know you might have a pick in it.
Well, I know, as most of y'all know in our preview show, we were a lot bigger on Wisconsin than we were at Penn State.
Yeah.
I think this Wisconsin team is very likely to win the Big Ten West and get to that championship game. Now, while they may still drop 2 or 3 getting there, I think they're the best team in the West. And I really like, I think both of these teams are strong defensively.
Yes.
Wisconsin's always great defensively, but I think the two plays that are going to help Wisconsin dominate this game, the home field advantage, and I like Graham Mertz better than Sean Clifford. I just think Mertz really, before he had to leave last season, he was showing he had some really good stuff, and I'm looking forward to seeing him play some more this season.
Yeah, I do think the Wisconsin offense is much, much better than Penn State. What really concerned me about this game, I think we both liked Wisconsin going in at the start of the week to blow this game out. I started to pull back a little bit of that around midweek. It just, I wonder what Wisconsin's mentality is coming into this game. It makes me a little nervous. I feel like they're just going to both teams really, really button down and be conservative and just try to win this in the last couple possessions of the game. Now, Wisconsin does have, a huge advantage playing in Wisconsin in this one. Like I said earlier, though, I think it would be more of an advantage if this was being played in bad weather in, November.
Yeah.
Late October, but anyway, I got a little nervous that this is going to be a little bit closer because I think both teams will sort of button up and not want to be the ones a la Nebraska making a mistake, handing the team the game, right off the bat. I certainly think Penn State probably will throw the ball as seldom as possible if they can. And I just wonder if Wisconsin then sees that and it's like, all right, let's not give them points. Let's not turn it over and starts, dinking and dunking possession throws and just trying to eat up a whole lot of the clock there too. So that's why I started to pull back a little bit, but I think I'd still lean Wisconsin here. I don't think Penn State is going to be all that great, but it's just how the game played out in my head. I got a little bit nervous on how that would work out. Anyway, I thought it was interesting too. These two teams have only played 19 times. You'd think two sort of Big Ten stalwarts would play all the time, but over the years, the last time they played was in 2018, and before that, 2016 in the Big Ten championship game. So not a whole lot of head-to-head matchups, and certainly not any that would bold you one way or the other here, because really I doubt anyone on either of these teams was still around from that 2018 team, unless they're probably a very, very large bench player. But anyway, interesting game to see how that conference game really heads up. And then we'll move on to a non-conference one. Two teams I think who are trying to maybe move their way into that, I wouldn't say top of the pack, but just under there, hover around. If bad things happen to the top teams, maybe they can slide in there. And interesting game in Stanford and Kansas State. Stanford going to Kansas State here. It's up to a 3-point spread for Kansas State. This thing opened at 1.5. I'm curious what your feeling is. I know we both sort of liked K-State looking ahead in our picks.
Well, I remember, we talked about both of these teams in our previews, and this was one game we pointed out for both of these. If they want to hit their over, this is a game they need to win.
Yeah.
So this is a big time game, first game of the year. Kansas State's got Skylar Thompson coming back healthy, but their biggest problem, Kansas State's got to play defense.
Yes.
They've really got to shore up that defense. They were awful last year, and Stanford might be able to come in and move the ball. And it could be an interesting shootout type of game in Kansas State. But I think the home field and just the weapons that K-State has on offense will probably benefit them. And that's why I'm leaning more Kansas State.
Yeah, I do think this has the potential of being a little bit more of a shootout, in not the terms of large passing numbers. But I wonder if Stanford will be able to stop Kansas State's rushing attack. And then I wonder if Kansas State will be able to stop Stanford's rushing attack. So this might play out a little bit like two option teams, a little bit. So where they can both run the ball on each other. And then, it's who can gain control, who can gain possession, whose defense steps up and gets key stops. And I'm sure more than anything, I think the turnover battle will be just huge on this, and especially early on, special teams, very, very big in these type of games. These teams at least college teams tend to be a little shaky on special teams a little earlier. So a dropped punt, missed field goals really could swing this game, which has me a little bit worried because Kansas State special teams were pretty porous last year. But we'll see if they shore that up. But I think potentially there's a bigger chance for a blowout on the Kansas State side of things. I really do think Kansas State, with their quarterback coming back, really has the opportunity to be maybe, if things go right, maybe that second best team in the Big 12. Now, things have to go together. Their offense has to merge. But that first year, they ended up winning 8 games. Now, last year they regressed a little, but, a lot of that has to do, with COVID. You mentioned that game, the opening week versus Lafayette, where they got beat basically by special teams, a couple of kick returns, but they also, like 2/3 of their team was also not playing in the game because of COVID. And they were having issues all last year. But this one's very interesting. A sort of sneaky shootout. The under was 52.5. I didn't want to touch that. I thought that was a little too low, especially if explosive run plays start happening, even with that clock moving. I just got a little bit shaky there on that one. All right. We're going to move on to the team we spoke about in week 0. Fresno State matches up with the Oregon Ducks here. This one is going to be really interesting here. We mentioned the Oregon Ducks, winners of the Pac-12, though they had their own COVID problems last year. I think Fresno State gets a little bit of an advantage in this game, having played the week before. A lot of people come up with the, cliched, your biggest jump is from week 1 to week 2. That probably seems to be more coach speak to cover their butt when their week 1 team sucks. But, it probably does help to at least have played a game versus a team who hasn't played a game here. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Fresno State Oregon matchup.
Well, I'm interested to see the new quarterback at Oregon, just how he's gonna play, and just with Fresno's got a really solid offense, and Oregon's not somebody that's gonna just go off and score 4 or 5 touchdowns really quick. Now the spread on this is 20.5, and I just don't know if Oregon is going to pull away that much. And I think this Fresno State team is going to surprise some people this year. I've been big on them for a while now, and I'm really eyeing that spread for sure.
Yeah, I think that 20.5 is a little bit bloated. I still think Oregon gets a little bit of a point spread bump because everybody thinks this is Oregon from,
and it's in Eugene.
Yeah, years and years ago. Now, Oregon is more than capable of blowing teams out, but they don't do it in quite the way of the Chip Kelly, Phil Brooks era, where they just explosively put on huge points on you.
They're going to put together 15-play drives.
Yeah, they're a pro-style offense who puts in drives. They maul you on the lines. More than anything, Fresno State is more old school Oregon style than Oregon is these days. So, every time I see a spread this big, 20.5, I start to raise my eye a little bit on the Ducks a bit.
I've been checking it about 4 times a day now, hoping for that extra half point, get to that 21.
Yeah, that's why I think if it gets to that 21, that number becomes a lot bigger. Because the one thing I do worry about is maybe this is a close game. It's a tight game going into that 4th quarter, and then maybe Fresno starts to wear down a little bit. Then Oregon hits a couple of explosive plays, and maybe this lead goes from 10, 14 into that 21-24 territory, and you get a little bit backdoored. But I'm curious if this Fresno State offense will be able to score on Oregon here.
Well, you say that, but I think their offense is not the problem. I think their defense is going to be the problem. But out of all the, if I'm looking at big money line upsets this week, this is the one I've actually got my eye on if I'm going to be picking an upset. Now I'll probably just end up taking the spread. I think Oregon's the better team. They're going to get the win.
Yes.
But for value and chance of an upset, I like this.
Yes, I do think it's live there. We need to see what Oregon is. We didn't get to see much of them last year.
There's always some week 1 surprises.
Yes,
so
definitely so. So that should be a really interesting game. I'm really intrigued to check that one out. We'll break down the big one. the Alabama-Miami game. I'm getting a little bit more intrigued. I do think this spread is, a little bit bloated. I think 19 now. I think this is a little bit to protect themselves because Bama essentially plays one of these teams every year and ends up winning by 50.
Yeah.
And my guess is the bookmakers are tired of everybody putting, 90% of their money on Alabama and rolling through in some sort of 50-20 game. But I do think early, this is a good time for the Hurricanes to get them one, per De'Aaron King actually being healthy. This was a very, very quick turnaround from a torn ACL, especially a guy based on a lot of movement. It's not that he can't pass. He is, very good in the pocket, delivering accurate passes, but he becomes a sort of ultra weapon when he has that ability to sit in the pocket, deliver accurate passes. And then if the rush is getting to him, which Miami's line has been porous the last couple of years, it looks to be improved this year, getting out and making explosive plays there. But what's your feel in this Bama-Miami game here?
When I first saw that spread, I was like, wow, that seems like a lot because, I think this is going to be a much better Miami team. I think their defense has improved a lot over last year. But then, it's Alabama.
Yeah, I know.
And they just blow everyone away and they reload. Now, they do have a lot of reloading to do this year. So a lot of questions of will they step in and everybody, be just as good as last team's team. But I think this defense on Bama is going to be even better than last year.
Yeah.
So it may look at the under being the play.
Mm-hmm.
It could get ugly, but I haven't seen anybody slow Alabama down in so long that it's hard to even buy that.
That's what my feel a little bit on this game is maybe the first half. This is where you come from a sort of more tight-knit, low-scoring game than probably they thought they were getting. And then maybe a couple changes on the Alabama side. They hit a couple explosive plays, especially Miami has been vulnerable to explosive plays the last handful of years. Now their secondary is supposed to be improved, but that's coming from sources probably from the Miami coaching staff, who it does no good to say their secondary is going to suck. So, you got to take a little bit of that, but I am intrigued by this game. I will say the one thing, Miami does have speed on both sides of the ball, so they won't be intimidated, player for player. And now the talent level on the Alabama team begins to start to get your separation there. But it should be an interesting game, a fun game. I don't think either of us quite pulled the trigger on this one. I think the spread's too high, but we don't probably trust Miami enough to really cover that spread, especially late in this game. All right, we're going to move on to another conference one in the Big Ten. I think this one has me most intrigued. I had it on my pick sheet, and it was a pretty late cross off because I couldn't quite make myself pull the Indiana Hoosiers at Iowa. That began to scare me more and more as I get into it. But I'm curious what you think about this Indiana-Iowa matchup. Tough place to open in Iowa, but I really do, as I was looking down at, think Indiana has a better team here.
Well, I think it comes down to the health and performance of Michael Penix for sure. This Indiana offense just runs through him, and if he's not playing well, they're not going to be moving the ball good. But both of these teams have tremendous defenses. I think Iowa gave up like 20 points per game last year.
Yeah.
Indiana gave up about 16 points per game. So two of the best defenses in the country, and they're matching up against each other. So we should get a good Big Ten game here. But I actually think it could become a story of the offense here. Like I said, Michael Penix is a big playmaker, and Iowa could move the ball pretty well. So I think it's going to be a really interesting game to watch. It's one I'm looking forward to.
Yeah,
for sure.
I feel like Indiana has the talent here. A couple of things that swayed me, a little bit, so that Iowa has a higher percentage of the bets on them, but then Indiana has a higher percentage of the money. So that tells me everybody is split and everybody's going one which way. The public's going one way. The smart bettors are going a different way, and nobody quite knows what to make of this game. And I think that's more why I probably crossed it off there. Is I don't think I quite know what to make of this game. Are we getting Indiana from last year? Or are we getting Indiana from 2, 3, 4 years ago, where we get a team that can make some plays, but ultimately gets beat? And that just tough spot of opening in Iowa, I just decided I wanted nothing to do with this. watch it, see what you got, and then week 2, week 3, week 4, make your judgments and maybe pull a trigger there if you think this Indiana team is going to continue to be that. Iowa will probably be a little bit undervalued, all year long like they usually are, because they just aren't all that entertaining to watch. But I think we're both really, really intrigued by this game. I think we'll both have an eye on it. I don't know if it makes it quite a TV1 territory, but it could bump up to a TV.
It's starting the same time as that Bama Miami game. So,
but I think it could work its way up to TV2, and maybe as the back end of the game.
Well, if Bama goes up by 4 touchdowns in about a quarter.
The Bama Miami gets 1, but it might slide down to 3 really, really quick there. But interesting game. Spread at minus, 3.5 for Iowa, which just, it hits that spot.
That's pretty much just home field there.
That's a home field spot. So you just, maybe that hook comes into play, because I do think this might come down to, a couple last possessions there in the fourth quarter. All right. I think our next game we're going to preview. I wanted to preview this one because I just have no idea what I'm getting out of this one. I know you have some thoughts on this one, but West Virginia, Maryland. I'll admit I had Maryland down, and when I first started, putting down my picks, because I thought they could be explosive. I don't know if West Virginia can be explosive, but then I will say the Maryland was one of the early cross-offs on the list of picks I went through. So what's your feel on West Virginia, Maryland?
I've been West Virginia the whole way ever since I saw this. I think West Virginia is a much better team here. I love their defense. And Talia Tagovailoa last year in 2 games against good defenses, Northwestern and Indiana. In both of those games, he threw 3 interceptions. So he struggles against good defenses, and boy, this West Virginia defense is good. Now they did lose their best safety, transfer to Georgia. But I think they've got enough talent on that team that their defense is just going to stifle this Maryland team and come in. And I like West Virginia a lot.
I think that's why I pulled off Maryland a little bit, really, really quick. I don't know if I trust that offense. If you ask me what, side of the ball I trust the most, it would be the West Virginia defense. Now, I don't trust that offense very much, but then Maryland's defense can be so non-existent. They can pretty much make anybody's offense look pretty good, especially if West Virginia can find a way to run the ball and control the clock. But I think the other thing that factored in a little bit is my guess is West Virginia has just as many fans at Maryland than Maryland does, so I don't know quite what the home field. I didn't know quite how to award that. Maryland probably will have some pretty cool looking unis, but I don't know if they'll have quite the fans in the stands that West Virginia will have. That's a traveling bunch there out of Morgantown. So, I'm very curious how this sort of game plays out yin and yang wise, because I think you do have, at least in theory, explosive offense in Maryland, and then you have a pretty buttoned up defensive style unit here in West Virginia. So I was just really, really intrigued how this played out. West Virginia got the nod as the favorite in this one. I think the odds makers were looking at it a little bit like me, like, I don't know how much of a home field advantage this is here, because you see the 3 points there for West Virginia. So interesting game, sort of a clash of styles here. I think we'll both know a little bit more about these teams coming out. Then I said that, and then, Maryland could lose to Howard next week, and it probably wouldn't stun me too much. Maybe a little bit, but probably not as much as you think. But I think we'll move on to a game that I think me and you probably had Penn talking about in July. The Lafayette Raging Cajuns versus Texas Longhorns. I think we were both hoping we'd be getting 12 points in this game. And sadly, this thing has pulled away quick, and even more quick. And it's down to hovering around the 8.5 territory here. But a lot of people in love with Lafayette and the Raging Cajuns. What do you make of this game here?
They went in and they got a big win beginning of last year, week 1. And this is a good team. They were right there in potential maybe playoff situation towards the end of last year. I know last year was a weird year. But when this thing opened up at 9.5, I was like, hey, if this gets over 10, I'm taking Louisiana. But it's gone the other way, and I'm not so sure. It really depends on how well this young quarterback for Texas coming in plays, and I don't know. I've stared at this one a lot. I just haven't been able to pull the trigger on it yet.
Yeah, I think I'm still going to go, how I was feeling in July. I do just think this Lafayette defense will give that Texas offense a whole lot of problems.
Yep.
And then also, you might think it's weird, but I think that Lafayette line, as good as the Texas line is, I think the Lafayette O-line can probably bully that Texas line. So, I don't think they will get a lot of explosive plays, but that's not what Lafayette does. They're sort of a grinded team. Really, they're probably Texas from real Texas back out of the 90s, but this got so low. I just get a little bit nervous about it. But I think you got to trust sort of yourself in this one and be like, I think Lafayette can hang with this team. Can they hang with them the whole way and go into Texas? That's the other part that has me a little. This is a atmosphere. It's, we talked about Louisiana Lafayette going into K-State, which is a difficult place to go into and win. But going into Texas and winning in Royal Stadium, much more of a difficult task for a team that probably is not quite used to these kind of big lights. You saw it in the Coastal Carolina game. It wasn't what I'd call this level of game, but it was a big game because both those teams knew that was the game to get to the Sun Belt, and one of them had a chance to ride through undefeated in there if they had won that game, and Lafayette just didn't quite hold up in that Coastal Carolina game. But I still really am interested. This should be a really interesting game along the line of scrimmage if Lafayette can sort of bully them there. I think they do have a chance definitely to remain close in this game and maybe steal it at the end. Also, Lafayette's special teams, we talked about special teams a little bit, is once again pretty good. So they might be able to sneak a return, get a punt block in here.
And we don't know how Texas is going to perform with, Sark's first game as head coach.
Yes.
So their offense is going to be changed up a little bit. Whether or not that's successful or not remains to be seen, and it's going to be tough against this Louisiana defense. Yeah, it is.
All right, we'll move out to the West Coast, and we'll talk about San Jose State USC. This game's pretty intriguing as well.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite as intriguing as the other one because I do think there's a little bit more of a talent separation here, but I do think people underrate, that San Jose State defense is a good defense.
And they went undefeated last year.
They did go undefeated last year. So this matchup versus USC, how do you see it playing out a little bit?
I think it's really going to come down to I think it's going to come down to the defense because both of these teams are going to move the ball offensively. And maybe it just comes down to who makes the fewest mistakes.
Yes.
Like turnover free, not throwing interceptions, not giving the other team easy chances. But I think both of these teams can score the ball and move the ball well. So I kind of like San Jose State here. They're getting a lot of points. They were getting a lot more, but it's shifted a little bit. They do have to go into LA, but I don't know how many fans are going to be there.
Yeah,
I mean, we saw how many fans were at the UCLA game last week.
This one probably gets a little bit more of a bump, but once again, it's still they would much rather go to a Dodgers game, I guarantee you, than go to a USC game down there. But, this is an interesting game because, I do think San Jose State can probably hurt USC, definitely down the field a little bit, So I think they will be able to score on them. Can that defense hold up? I think I'm more curious what USC does come out offensively. I talked about it in our preview show. They run that air raid offense. Mm-hmm. I thought they threw way too much last year. This isn't a team that needs to run the air raid offense. They have elite level backs. They have an elite level line. They have elite level receivers. They have elite level quarterbacks. You don't need to gimmick. Essentially, the air raid was a gimmick offense created to teams who could not build line play, could not be capable of running the ball. So they found a way to sort of gimmick the system into being able to get lots of yards. USC doesn't need to do that. Their line can move people. They have plethora of backs who can run the ball. And I thought last year they got away from running the ball. You saw it in that Arizona State game. They pretty much were slinging the ball all over. And then when the comeback hit, it was because they hit a handful of runs down there. And then, hoping a Hail Mary pair and bad defense by the Arizona State Sun Devils. But, I think it cost him in a couple games. It certainly cost him in that Pac-12 championship game versus Oregon.
Yep.
Basically Oregon just sat back in their defense and rushed the quarterback and picked them apart. So I think San Jose State, if USC continues to play that air raid style, sort of plays into San Jose State's hands because they've seen air raid offenses. They're used to playing smaller teams who run, offensive like that. What they probably couldn't stand up to is a bunch of large, more athletic men beating them up, and running past them. So I'm very interested in how this San Jose State game plays out. The spread's gotten a little bit
I think it's a little large.
It's large, but I liked it much better when it was hovering around 16, 17 and when it's hovering around 14. I will say I ended up crossing this one off because I didn't think the value was quite there at 14. But if it magically climbs back up into that 17-point range, I might be a little bit more bullish on it. Definitely. All right. I guess we'll go to the big game at night. Georgia Clemson here. This is a fun matchup, certainly this early in the season, but I think both you and I think this is a lopsided matchup. I think Clemson's way better on pretty much every point of the ball. The only thing I could probably say is maybe Clemson's quarterback, though we saw him last year. He seemed to handle things fine. I don't know whether that would change all of a sudden, but this is a much bigger game than he played in for 2 weeks there. But what do you make of this Clemson-Georgia game?
Everyone's hyping up Georgia, but it's always like this for Georgia. And everybody's big on Kirby this year, and I'm not a Kirby fan. I think Kirby always finds a way to blow it. And I just think Clemson's defense is going to be the key to this.
Yes.
I think their defense is going to be really solid. And I don't think JT Daniels is that great of a playmaker. Yeah, he's got more experience than DJ does, but I think DJ's way more talented.
Yeah.
And I think I think they're going to come in and I think Clemson's going to get this one.
Yeah. I want to see these great Georgia receivers get past this type of team. I do think the Georgia O-line is a pretty solid O-line, but I want to see them stand up to Clemson here. They're going to come after Georgia and JT Daniels, who's shown in the past, like most quarterbacks, does not love pressure, but he's one of the ones who really does not love pressure. And then mistakes come. And if mistakes come versus Clemson's team, this one's going to be a roll away. And I really think this has a chance to be a little bit of a roll away game here. I think Clemson could probably bully them pretty good.
Yeah.
Certainly on the defensive side of things. I'm just curious where Georgia gets points because I don't foresee them getting explosive plays. Now, Clemson gave up explosive plays in that Ohio State game, but I think that it was a totally different defense last year to this year. And I just don't see Georgia making those. So I'm pretty bullish here on the Clemson Tigers. I don't really see a ton of ways the Georgia Bulldogs would win other than maybe if DJ isn't, quite what we thought, but even then they have such skilled position guys on the wide receiver on the line that if it gets into a close, tight game, I think still Clemson's a better team and they'll make a play down the stretch. All right. We talked about UCLA and getting those explosive runs. They have an interesting matchup, probably a huge game, really for their season, probably a huge game for both teams entering the season. Cause this is one I don't think LSU can afford to lose. I think that just starts the snowball rolling for Ed, to be dismissed towards the end.
I think
of
there's
the
a lot of people looking for that snowball to get rolling.
Yeah.
So he can't afford to slip up anymore.
Yes. And losing at UCLA would be I'm assuming LSU always thinks they're a better football team than UCLA. So I think a loss here would be a pretty bad start to the year for them.
Well, there's a lot of factors coming into this game. UCLA looked really good last week, but again, like I said earlier, it was Hawaii. LSU, they were terrible last year. But all these players they got on their team that were bad last year, they're all big time recruits.
Mhm.
They've not got experience. They're supposed to be bouncing back and being this awesome team again this year. But LSU had some struggles. They had to bus out to Houston this week because of a hurricane. They've been practicing in Houston, and now they're going out to LA. So they've been on the road for about 4 days already now at this point. And I don't know. My gut says LSU is going to win this game, and they should win it pretty handily. But it depends on, are they going to make that big jump and get back into that 9-10 win range that they're supposed to be in? Or are they still going to be struggling back? Their big star freshman quarterback coming in got hurt, so they had to go
with Max.
Yeah, so
depends how you like the Johnson family. I was never a huge fan, but maybe you were a big Washington, Tampa Bay, Minnesota fan. He did manage to launch a lot of balls to Randy Moss at one point in time, but I don't think Randy's lining up on the sideline.
No, and so
and I think his kid just got cut also on NFL roster cut day.
That's why every time I look at either side, I've actually been back and forth on this quite a bit, and I just can't pull the trigger on either side. I think I'm just going to enjoy the game, see where each team falls, and then look at it moving forward after this week.
Yeah, I ended up crossing this one off. I think we both probably thought UCLA was going to get a handful of more points here than the 3 that it's hovering around. I thought we were at least getting,
I think we get a touchdown.
Yeah, I thought I was getting 6 to 7, and when I saw 3, I put it down in my initial list just because I was curious about this game, but I crossed it off pretty quick because I do want to, I mentioned the stat that was Chip Kelly's first non-conference win last week. So now we're going from first non-conference win to
big SEC.
to beating LSU in a 2-week stretch. I'm very curious to see how this rushing game goes versus a LSU defense. I do trust the secondary. I think the secondary will be elite. I think there are a couple more questions on LSU on the defensive side of the ball along the line and the linebackers. So maybe they can hit a couple holes and explosive plays here. The other thing I'm interested in, and probably will be the whole key to this game, is the LSU offense or is the UCLA defense real? I don't know if either is really all that great. And I think we'll get a telling of where each stand here, or maybe we'll just get double mediocre.
I think that's why it's just I'm staying away. There's just way too many variables here that we of unknowns, and I just can't get a read on it at all.
We mentioned it's an away game for UCLA, but I think if anybody saw UCLA's crowd last week, there was pretty much no one there, and my guess is there will be a lot of LSU fans there. I heard that they were rumors that they were already tailgating at the Hawaii game.
I believe it.
So they were there a couple weeks early to get the party started. So I'm not looking overwhelming UCLA fan crowd noise here. Now, back in the 90s, they did have a little bit of a bump there where the crowds were getting there, but I don't know if this one will quite have the home field advantage you want. So I was just on stay away, but I'm really, really intrigued to see how this matchup plays out. And, the other thing is how will Dorian Thompson-Robinson play? I do think he needs to be a little bit better than he was last week.
Yeah, he's going to have more
you can't
down
totally
the field threat.
Totally rely on just explosive runs. You got to at least, these are the games where you need some quarterback play. Versus Hawaii, it's meaningless because they could hit runs all day long, but he needs to make some throws and not make turnovers. The other thing is here, you can't turn the ball over to this LSU team. Even if their offense is terrible, they'll be able to score on short fields like that. So very interesting game. Yeah. All right. We'll move to your
another team I'm big
darling of the Mountain West here.
Mountain West team
I know you're big on the West Coast of the Mountain West. Maybe all these teams end up in the Big 12 before too long. But anyway, Nevada at Cal. I think this was the most interesting game. I looked up. I really wanted to take Nevada. Love this Nevada offense. I do agree with you. I think they will be one of the best offensives in the country. Cal is, I don't know what Cal is. They're just a weird Justin Wilcox team. Yeah. They are disciplined and good on defense. Their offense leaves a ton to be desired, but they somehow have found ways to win games, not necessarily last year, but a lot of that had to do with COVID. But in the previous years, they had managed to win 7, 8, 9 games. But this one's just weird. So what do you make of this Nevada-Cal game?
I think I locked my bet on this game 2 to 3 weeks ago. I'm big fan of Nevada. I've got them winning the Mountain West. I think they're the most talented team in the Mountain West. And this is just a very average to mediocre Cal team. They may be on the rise. Their defense is going to be solid, but I don't think they're going to have much offensively to compete with the power that Nevada has on the offensive side of the ball.
A couple of things here. The money and the bets were all on Nevada. So everybody is riding Nevada here, which might have scared me off just a little bit. I don't want to be with everybody else
take the easy
quite all the time. And the other thing that sort of rose my eye up a little bit was that total at 52.5. That's probably the lowest total Nevada will have, really probably
a lot of respect for Cal's defense
other than maybe San Diego State, but that's telling me that they think Cal's defense will be a really, really good and somehow maybe manage to slow this team down. So if they're slowing the team down, then I'm getting nervous if Nevada can pull this win. So I pulled out of this game, but I'm really interested to see the sort of counterclash here of the Nevada offense versus Cal defense and whatever we get on the offensive side of Cal. I'm always interested to see what we get out of there. We usually get some white little small running back out of Cal running the ball into the line of scrimmage. But anyway, interesting matchup there. I think we'll get a good read on where Nevada sits overall.
I think it's a good test for them.
If they can go in there and win a decent game, then
a big Power 5 win.
I think we see that Nevada will be a contender in the Mountain West. Now, if they go in there and don't play all that well, I think we sort of see that, their level is probably where Cal is, and I don't think that'll be enough, so to sort of jump into that San Jose State, Boise State category. So interesting game really there. All right, the next one, this wasn't more for the game overall. I think we all know probably how this game is going to go, but I wanted to talk a little bit about BYU because we didn't get into the independents in our preview. BYU coming off a 10-1 season. Now, Zach Wilson leaves. But one of the teams where I don't worry about that is once one 25-year-old quarterback leaves, usually another one with a family of 5 comes in and takes over quarterback play here. So I think more than talking about this game, I think we both think BYU will go in there and win pretty easy on a pretty depleted Arizona team. What are your expectations on BYU on this year? Their schedule is much, much difficult. So I don't think they're going 10-1, but do you think they can sort of be in that 8-9 win territory?
It's hard to really get a good read on this BYU team just because, like you said, they were so dependent on Zach Wilson last year. So to replace that, you just really have no idea where they're going to be on the offensive side of the ball. But they should be able to handle this first game against Arizona, no problem. But they've got a lot of big games, being that independent, they kind of got to go all around and play a whole bunch of different teams all year. But I think they could probably be in that 7 to 9 win range. But like I said, it's really have a toss up at this point. Yeah,
this one probably will be one eye on to see what BYU looks at more than what the actual game is.
If you think they're going to be near or close to where they were last year, they need to come out and dominate this game.
Definitely so. But the matchup isn't all that intriguing. It is, a Pac-12 versus a independent. But if we want to start looking at football histories, I think BYU's is much more.
Well, Arizona is probably one of the worst teams in the FBS.
Yes. So I look forward to seeing how they get in the future. But with this coach here running that pro style system and Pete Carroll's kid running the offense, but they need to bring in some talent, I think, before they really we get a judge here. And then interesting, the Western Michigan game. This spread jumped out to me. I thought it was pretty big. Michigan getting a lot more respect than I thought versus I don't want to say great Western Michigan team, but it's certainly a good Western Michigan team. And if you don't take this game serious, they're going to throw some points on you. So what do you make of this Western Michigan team?
Well, I think looking back, traditionally Michigan's been a slow starter.
Yeah.
They had that famous upset to App State, but I think this isn't a Western Michigan team to sleep on, and 17 points is an awful lot for a team that can really move the ball. And we don't know if Michigan.
Well, that was the thing. They think they can move the ball because the under/over is 66.
Yeah.
I don't know the last time a MAC team came into Michigan and you had an under/over of 66. So I think they think Western Michigan's going to score points. Now, I'm assuming they think Michigan will score points on Western Michigan. Now, Western Michigan's defense has been pretty porous, but I think anybody who's watched the Michigan offense, I haven't seen a ton of explosion there.
Going back to last year, I trust this Western Michigan offense more than I do Michigan.
So I will say this was my last cut here on our pick list here. I thought the 17 was really, really good. The only thing that had me nervous a little bit was, Western Michigan going into Michigan. I will say that atmosphere will be something they have not seen ever before. Now, that being said, this could turn a little soccer like if Michigan gets off to a bad start. The coach is already pretty much living by a thread here. So if this gets off to a bad start, Western Michigan hits a couple plays on them.
I'll make it to the end of the game.
The crowd might turn really, really quick, all of a sudden there. And But I think that was my final thing. I just didn't know if Western Michigan, I think there was more of a chance that Western Michigan got a little, big-eyed going in here and didn't quite play up to what their capabilities are. Also, they're a pretty tiny level offense. That first game of the season, I looked at their offense might be more explosive in week 4, 5, 6 than probably week 1, where they probably have to tinker. This isn't, while their offense is really, really good, it's not an offense loaded with, 5-star level guys who are going to be littering the NFL. They have to scheme, timing, be ready.
But Michigan isn't really full of 5 stars either.
No,
they haven't been recruiting as
they
well
have
as they have
a lot of 3 stars out of Indiana. But anyway, I am highly curious how this Michigan Wolverines team kicks off and to see if they can sort of put Western Michigan away.
I may lock. I haven't put anything on this one yet, but I'm going to keep an eye on that Western.
Yeah, stay tuned for Saturday Winning Daily. There could be some add-ons onto the picks we're about to get into. And speaking of that, it's pick time.
All right.
Our first picks of the actual season, week 0 was a fun week. This is our first real week. So how many picks do you got?
I've got an even dozen for this Saturday's matchups. Now we've already put out some Thursday picks on your Winning Daily Thursday, and I think you've got some Friday picks tomorrow.
Yes.
But this is exclusively Saturday.
This is exclusively Saturday, maybe with a little Sunday, Monday in there, trickled in, because I don't know if I'll do the Winning Daily with just one game out there on Sunday and Monday. But I have 12 picks as well. So we're loaded up for week 1. 12 picks apiece. So
loving the confidence.
12 picks now. It might end up and ballooned like 15, 16 by Saturday. But right now, depending on how they go to anger bets as the day plays out, probably plays a factor.
Well, see how well I do tonight. May give me even more confidence to pick more Saturday. But
all right.
I like the ones I've got so far.
All right. So let's start out with you. What do you got in your first pick of week 1 of the college?
I'm going to start with the first game we talked about today, that Wisconsin-Penn State. I'm taking Wisconsin -5. Like I said, the home field, I think they have a quarterback advantage. I think both these defenses are going to be pretty strong. But I give Wisconsin the offensive edge, and I like them to cover the 5.
Yeah. Well, I'm starting out with a big-time game here.
Oh, yeah.
One of the biggest games of the year.
TV2? TV1?
Maybe TV1. I don't know if this game is allowed to be.
I don't know if it's on TV.
I will certainly look for it. But I'm going to go with Uconn. -2.5 versus Holy Cross here. You look at the Uconn schedule, there are about 2 wins on it. This is one of those 2 wins that they have to get. The spread being 2.5. I'm just going to ride Uconn here. I think they can beat Holy Cross. Now, that being said, Holy Cross is kind of an okay subdivision
I tell you
program.
what, if UConn may want to consider just not playing football if they can't win this game.
But I am assuming their shoes will not be melted. Possibly they will be capable of throwing a forward pass, maybe even run the ball a little bit on this Holy Cross team. So we're going with UConn -2.5 to
All
kick
right.
off our picks.
All right.
I'll be sure to send you score updates as they fly in. What do you got next?
All right, another game we talked about and that I already hinted that I really like. I'm taking West Virginia -2.5 at Maryland. I really love this West Virginia defense. I think they're really going to dominate Maryland.
Yeah. I'm going with another big time matchup here. This might be on TV2 under the UConn game, but we're going to go Georgia State -2.5 versus the Army here. I was really shocked this got this low. Georgia State is much accustomed to playing option level teams, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem.
Really good last year.
And they're a very solid team with a handful of playmakers. They still have a lot of those guys who beat Tennessee a couple of years ago. So I just think they have better talent than the Army here. It's in Georgia State, so I'm going to ride Georgia State -2.5. I think they're the better team here. And I think a little of this is, because Army runs the option and that's difficult to go. But Georgia State plays option teams all the time in the Sun Belt, including their biggest rival, Georgia Southern, who has essentially run the option since they became a football program. So I don't think Georgia State will have trouble adapting their defense to stopping the option. It is something they are used to and something they do multiple times a year. So I really like that Georgia State 2.5. I think they'll be able to score points on Army here. All right, what do you got for number 3?
All right, my number 3 pick. I'm taking in the Indiana at Iowa game. And, I've talked about these defenses, love these defenses, but I'm actually going to go with the over 45.
Oh my, whoa, living in the dangerous world and over in Iowa, in the Big Ten. I should look up those stats to see how often Iowa overs.
It's not that often. I think this Indiana team's going to come in really slinging the ball.
Now, I will say 45 is a very, very low point total.
I think that's really low. I think that's something you would expect in that Georgia State Army game. But I think these teams, I think they're going to be filling each other out. The defenses might not be quite settled in on this first game. I look back, traditionally Iowa doesn't start up the year very strong. They give up a lot of points usually in the first couple of weeks. And I think Indiana's going to come in, take advantage of that, and sling the ball around. I may end up going with a bet on Indiana too, but for now, I just like the over 45 in this game. Yeah.
All right. We're going to go one that we both have a dual one on. So I'm going Marshall -2.5 versus Navy here. I just think Marshall's a much, much better team. Now, they do not play teams that run the option quite as much. Early game in Annapolis, maybe there's some tricky stuff there, especially without the coach. But I'm just going to ride talent here. I think Marshall's a much, much better team. I think you have this one as well.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say that as my 4th pick. I've got Marshall. I got them at -3, but I think they're going to go and take care of this. I'm really down on Navy this year, and I like Marshall as one of the favorites in their conference, and they're returning a lot of talent. New coach this year, a lot of talent coming back. I think they're going to outclass Navy.
Yeah, I think Marshall's talent will be fine. It's 3 years down the road. They can, that coaching staff can replenish the talent and continue the program there. To even out our bets here, I also have a bet on the under in the Marshall Navy game. I have Marshall Navy under 48 here. I really don't think Navy will be able to score points on Marshall. Even with that, I think this just reads as Marshall winning 24-7, 24-13. Just sort of a easy, low scoring, cruisy game where they dominate the game. They don't necessarily score 40, 50 points, but they're not threatened by Navy, and they easily win this game. So I thought 48 was a little bit high on that total. So I'm going to ride the Marshall Navy under 48 as well.
Okay.
What do you got next?
Okay, I'm going to roll into a game that I think we both picked the same side again on. I like Kansas State -2.5 versus Stanford. Stanford's 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 non-conference games. And I think a healthy Skylar Thompson, they're going to be able to run the ball on Stanford really well. And I think they're going to control the game offensively and cover that 2.5.
Yeah, I have Kansas State minus the 3 versus Stanford, and I'm really bullish on this Kansas State team. I think they can have a pretty good season here, so I'm going to ride Kansas State on the -3 as well. All right, what do you got next?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and get my pick for the big game. We both indicated we really like Clemson here. I got my bet in at -3.5. I think Clemson wins potentially by 2 touchdowns. I trust their talent and their defense more than I do Georgia.
Yeah, we're on the same wavelength. Again, another mutual pick. I got Clemson -3 here versus Georgia. I think this will be a pretty easy money game here. So riding Clemson as well.
All right. Another one we just spoke of. I really like Nevada. I locked this one weeks ago. As soon as I saw they were getting points, I jumped all over that. I think they should be favorites in this game. Offense is much better than Cal. They're going to go in and get a big win.
Yeah. Speaking of games we liked that ended up crossed off on my board and you took, and this one probably got crossed off on your board and it still is mine. I'm going Lafayette plus the 8 versus Texas here. So really, really like Lafayette. I think this will be an interesting game. And to sort of combo package that, I'm running the under 58 on this as well. I really was shocked this was in the high 50s. Lafayette doesn't play high 50s games. Even if they get blown out, they are not playing a game in the high 50s. They will drain that clock. They aren't an option team, but they literally run the ball out of an I formation and grind the clock to nothing, and their defense is very good. So the only way this really hits over is if Texas makes a ton of turnovers and Lafayette scores off those, because, I don't see how that's 58. So I really like that Lafayette Texas under bet at 58.
Okay. Well, we're going to move to another one that really jumped out at me that I really like. Houston, they were getting 1.5 versus Texas Tech. We both like Houston as a dark horse to win their conference. Maybe not even dark horse.
Yes.
I thought they were getting good odds, but I think they should be.
Thank you, BetMGM free bet.
Yes. Yeah. But I'm they were getting 1.5. I'm going to take the money line, get a little bit better juice there. I'm taking Houston plus 105 versus Texas Tech to get the win.
Yeah, I'm riding the spread here. We're on mutual again. Houston minus 1.5 versus Texas Tech. I just think this Houston team is much, much better. Now, my life has pretty much revolved around Dana Holgorsen letting me down for majority of it. So will I be stunned if that trend continues? No, but I do think Houston's a much, much better team than Texas Tech here. So them getting 1.5 points at home, I was just stunned about. So Houston minus 1.5 for me as well.
Next up, a really exciting game, Eastern Washington at UNLV.
We'll be tuned in for that one.
I'm going to take the under here. It's at 67.5. UNLV's brought back all their starters on defense. Now, it wasn't a great defense, but that's experience across the board. And I think if they can play any kind of a defense, this game is going to stay under that 67.5.
Yeah. I'm going the opposite side of things on it under, and I'm going over. And I got the over on the Oregon State Purdue 68.5. Is that a very large line? Yes, it is. But I will tell you one thing. Neither of these teams play any defense, and they both want to win. So I think the points are going to fly here pretty good. I think it's a similar sort of game to Louisville Ole Miss, where these two teams don't really play a ton of defense, and they are just going to try to hit explosive plays on each other pretty much all game long. So I think that over hits. So I'm going Oregon State Purdue over 68.5.
All right. For my next pick, I'm taking the under 75.5 in this Ole Miss at Louisville game. This could potentially go even higher. Neither of these teams are known for their defense, as you just said. Ole Miss has got to have some improvement on their
Scott
defense.
Satterfield used to be known for his defense at Happy State, but I think he has somehow less quality players at Louisville on the defensive side of the ball.
Now, this Ole Miss defense has got to have some signs of improvement. I think Ole Miss could very well score 40 to 50 points, but I don't see Louisville scoring more than 10 to 20. So I'm going to take the under 75.5 here. I like that large number.
Well, I'm going on that game, but I'm taking Louisville plus the 10.5.
Ooh.
I don't foresee Ole Miss's defense improving, and I just want to watch these two teams trade points. I don't see much separation here. I just see a lot of scoring and a lot of non-stops on the defensive side of things. So I thought that 10.5 was a little bit too big for a game where you're not going to get any stops whatsoever, and you're just going to get a large score. So I'm going to ride Louisville plus the 10.5 in that game. Is that all you got?
I've got one more left. I'm down to my last one.
Got one more left as well.
All right. I'll finish things up on my end. Like I said, I'm really hoping for this to get to 21, but I'm locked in today, taking Fresno State plus the 20.5 at Oregon. I just think they're better than that spread indicates, and they'll keep this one a little closer than people think.
I got one more over under to get to. San Diego State, New Mexico State, 50.5. I'm taking that under there.
That's a solid under.
If anyone watched New Mexico State not score versus UTEP last week, San Diego State's defense is probably leaps and bounds better than UTEP's. So the thought that New Mexico State could score points on this game, I am assuming they are shut out again as well. They aren't even at home this time. So I'm expecting no points from the New Mexico side. And San Diego State's offense is really, really poor. So I don't think they can even capably get to 45 points on their own. So I think this game probably sits in the much like the UTEP game, in the 30s to nothing. And that's way under the 50.5. Yeah. So I'm under 50.5 on San Diego State, New Mexico State. So our week one picks are in the books. Look for us on Monday to do a little bit of our recap and see how we did over the weekend, talk about the matchups and how these games played out. Be sure to like and subscribe. We still got our NFL previews coming out. NFC and AFC North on Friday with Achilles Reign. Be sure to tune in for Winning Daily. We might throw in a handful of more picks as they come and go throughout the week, so you don't want to miss any add-ons on there, and little throw-ins definitely on Saturday. Also, our man Sparky will be back with his picks. You don't want to miss those. So like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our shows. That's our show, and we're out.
Greenlight Network presents Football Time.